Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some seriously fascinating source material that reality checks one of the most famous financial books out there, Why Rich Are Getting Richer. There's a lot of grand theory floating around about leverage and massive returns, but this analysis, it takes a completely different route. We're going to see what happens when these popular wealth-building theories are tested against the gritty, highly realistic conditions of the actual real world. To understand the trap so many of us fall into, let's look at a highly relatable, highly realistic scenario from our source. Meet Monty. Monty's a young professional, just landed a job, and his very first paycheck is about to drop into his account. It's an awesome moment, right? But suddenly, Monty's just totally overwhelmed. He asks his family what he should do with his new cash, and immediately, the conflicting advice just starts pouring in. His dad tells him to avoid the stock market completely, calls it a gamble. His advice? Put the money in a savings account, let it build, and lock it into a safe fixed deposit. Then Monty's mom chimes in. She doesn't trust banks, points out that FD interest rates are terrible right now, and says to buy physical gold. It's safe, sits right there in the house, and hey, the price always goes up, right? And then Grandpa speaks up. He says gold isn't a great investment and tells Monty to take out a loan, buy a plot of land, and spend the next 20 years paying it off so he has something of his own. Poor Monty is paralyzed. The source points out that this is a classic, hyper-realistic middle-class trap. Because real financial education isn't taught in schools, we end up relying on this outdated, super conservative advice from people who, well, haven't exactly achieved true financial freedom themselves. Section 1. The three pillars of wealth: investments, taxes, and debt. The source notes that financial education usually boils down to these three main pillars. Okay, let's dive into this, because today we're focusing heavily on that third pillar, debt. The source outlines a really fundamental distinction made in the book between bad debt and what it calls good debt. Bad debt is super easy to understand. It's consumer debt. Imagine you see a sweet pair of shoes for 6,000 rupees. You don't actually have the cash, but you've got that credit card you kept for, emergencies. You buy the shoes anyway, maybe a jacket next. Before you know it, you're trapped in this cycle of paying high interest and confusing bank fees on things that literally lose value the second you buy them. That's bad debt. But the source explains that the book introduces this theoretical concept of good debt, loans that supposedly put money back into your pocket by purchasing income-generating assets. Section 2. The seduction of phantom income. Let's look at how this theory is supposed to actually work. According to the book, the core idea behind phantom income is that the wealthy don't just use their own money to get richer, they use the bank's money. It sounds like a total magic trick, combining active and passive income using leverage. Let's break down the theoretical math the book promotes. Say you've saved 1 crore rupees and want to invest in real estate. The traditional safe route? Buy one property outright for 1 crore in cash, rent it out, and enjoy that rental income debt-free. But the phantom income strategy says, no, don't do that. Instead, take that same 1 crore and split it into 5 down payments of 20 lakhs each. You go to the bank, take out 5 separate loans, and boom, now you control 5 properties instead of 1. The theory assumes the rental income from these 5 properties will comfortably pay off the 5 loans, leaving you with massive cash flow and a multiplying real estate portfolio. Section 3. A harsh reality check. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how the source completely pivots the explainer away from those theoretical clouds and right into the gritty reality of actual market conditions. Let's drop a hard, realistic number into the conversation. 80,000. Because while the phantom income theory looks incredible on a whiteboard, the analysis argues that it absolutely shatters when it meets actual gritty market conditions. If you go into a major real estate market right now, say Mumbai, and take out a loan for a 1 crore property over 20 years, your EMI, your equated monthly installment, is going to be roughly 80,000 rupees per month. And here is the realistic critique where the book's theory completely fails. For that 1 crore property, you are absolutely not getting 80,000 or 90,000 in rent to cover your loan. In reality, your maximum rental yield is probably going to sit somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 a month. The math simply doesn't work out the way it does on paper. According to the analysis, if you actually followed the book's advice and took out 5 loans, the rent wouldn't even come close to covering those bank payments. You, the everyday investor, would be forced to pay the massive difference, essentially half of the EMI, out of your own pocket. And remember, that's multiplied by 5 properties. Section 4. The risk of financial death. This transitions us right into the immense hidden dangers of leveraging massive debt. And this brilliantly illustrates a really terrifying yet perfect metaphor used in the source to explain this risk. Think of it as a suicide game involving 100 parachutes. Imagine you're in an airplane and you're offered a game with a massive financial reward if you jump out and survive. There are 100 parachutes on board, 99 of them work flawlessly, but one of them is totally defective and guarantees a fatal crash. Would you play that game? No way, right? Because even though the odds of winning are super high, the cost of failure is complete destruction. The analysis argues that high leverage debt is exactly like this game. You might win for a while, sure, but eventually disaster is mathematically guaranteed. And frankly, that doesn't sound like a sound investment strategy. In the real world, losing this game of high leverage results in the ultimate financial loss, bankruptcy, or what the source calls financial death. This is the grim state where your massive loan liabilities vastly exceed the actual value of your assets, and your cash flow has just completely dried up. It is the one scenario every smart investor has to avoid at all costs. Let's ground this danger in reality by walking through a highly probable timeline. Let's call our investor Sunny. Sunny reads the book, gets super hyped up, and takes out 5 heavy loans to buy 5 properties. Things actually look great for a year, but history tells us that recessions happen regularly. Suddenly, an unexpected economic crisis hits, like a lockdown or a severe downturn. Jobs get lost, Sunny's tenants can't pay their rent, so the rental income stops entirely. But you know who absolutely does not care about the crisis? The bank. The bank demands their EMI money every single month, no matter what. Sunny doesn't have the cash flow, so he defaults. The bank waits maybe 3 months before kicking off the auction process. Now, Sunny tries to sell the properties himself to get out of it, but here is the gritty reality. Real estate is highly illiquid. It's not like the stock market where you can just open an app and sell your shares at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. In a recession, there are no good buyers. The bank forcefully auctions Sunny's properties at a massive discounted loss. And the absolute worst part? Sunny still owes the original loan amount, plus penalties, plus late fees, plus interest. He is totally bankrupt, and his lifetime of hard work is wiped out in an instant. Section 5. The Real Path to Wealth. Let's shift our focus away from the dangers of the book's leverage advice to a grounded, realistic strategy for true financial freedom. So, the crucial point is, how do we achieve financial freedom without risking financial death? The source emphasizes that true wealth isn't built on a house of debt cards. True wealth generation comes from providing actual, undeniable value to the market. You build wealth by creating a valuable product, offering a valuable service, or creating valuable content. You take the money you earn from providing that real value and you build a resilient, diversified portfolio. And most importantly, you maintain a low debt-to-equity ratio. You want to be strong enough to survive a recession, not so heavily leveraged that a single bad month wipes out your entire life's work. Let's move to our final reality check with this incredibly powerful quote highlighted in the source material. If you are smart, you don't need debt, and if you are dumb, it will ruin you. I mean, that perfectly hammers home the danger, doesn't it? Leverage might take you to the top incredibly fast, but it will bring you crashing down to zero at double the speed. It's a stark realization. Being poor is hard, but working your entire life to become wealthy only to risk it all on high-leverage loans is an absolute tragedy. We really hope this explainer has given you a fresh, highly realistic perspective on wealth creation based on this analysis. So, we'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider for your own financial journey. Will you attempt to build your wealth on the fragile foundation of dangerous leverage, or will you choose the sustainable path of providing undeniable value to the real world? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.